The Black Mamba was an NBA legend with an array of endless accolades spanning his 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers. Throughout his time in the public eye, he was also involved in film, firstly appearing in several TV sitcoms in the 90s, a few movies in the 2000s, and a few projects he executive produced in the 2010s, including Detail, a series he hosted which focused on in-game analysis throughout the NBA playoffs. In addition to his several businesses, he was an author, having written an autobiography, and co-written several young adult novels. He was said to have also been working on a children's book aimed at inspiring underprivileged kids at the time of his demise. In the Y2K era, when he wasn't on the courts, he would step into the studio and try his hand at a rap career. He had already been featured on Brian McKnight's single, Hold Me, and teamed up with his teammate Shaquille O'Neal for the track 3 Times Dope, released on Shaq's 1998 album, before he would appear on the remix to Destiny's Child's #1 hit, Say My Name. He would go on to record an album called Visions, which featured artists like 50 Cent and Nas. The lead single, KOBE, featured Tyra Banks, and they would premiere the song at the NBA All-Star Weekend in 2000. Fans and critics alike would have a good belly laugh, then tell him to hightail it back onto the court, and so he did. But by 2012, he was a family man who desired more quality time with his wife and kids, and with LA's snarling traffic-ridden roads taking up much commute time, Kobe had always opted for helicopter rides to and from his home games. So in 2014, he launched his company called Kobe Inc., which would partner up with OC Helicopters, a tour agency in Orange County, to handle the transportation of Kobe, his family, his friends, and close associates wherever they needed to go. And by January of 2020, the agency had a consistent rhythm down-packed with Kobe Inc. and the charter company Island Express Helicopters, using only their aircrafts and only a select few well-vetted pilots to fly Kobe's people around. Ara Zobayan being his personal favorite. His daughter Gianna by now was an athlete herself with the Mamba girls basketball team that Kobe himself coached at the Mamba Sports Academy. They had a major tournament called the Mamba Cup that weekend. Per usual, they, along with a few teammates and assistant coaches, would load into the helicopter bound for the game. With this being the safest mode of travel, everything, as always, would be a breeze, right up until a few slight missteps paired with dense, foggy conditions would end everything for everyone involved, and sending a legend who had so much more he wanted to give to the world, instead to an early grave at just 41 years of age. You're watching Justified by Jury, and in this special sports edition of the Unfortunate Demise series, we will detail the lives of the 8 passengers who were on board the helicopter with him and their accomplishments, which many achieved at just the tender age of 13. We will get an understanding of the events leading up to the crash, investigate the crash itself, the complicated aftermath, and the all too similar eerie circumstances surrounding this event, and that of another celebrity who died the same way. Let's get started with the closest person to Kobe that fateful day, as he and his wife Vanessa would have 4 daughters, the second of which would be born Gianna Maria Honore Bryant on May 1st, 2006 in Orange County. She was their rainbow baby, as Vanessa had suffered a miscarriage the year prior. She went by Gigi and was a daddy's girl in every sense of the word. She was often referred to as the female version of Kobe to family and friends. She discovered her love for basketball at a young age after having witnessed her dad win his 4th and 5th championships. She rarely left his side, and he would take her to his games where she would often shoot around with the team while they warmed up. Her mother said that she also had a hidden talent for easily being able to pick up song lyrics after the first few listens, just one of the many talents she acquired from the Black Mamba himself. A fun fact is that she was born just 6 minutes before Shaq's daughter Miara, and the two would become good friends, sharing their love for basketball as kids. When Kobe retired in 2016, he had no further interest in basketball and wouldn't even attend another game. That was until he discovered his daughter's zest for the sport, and he became thrilled in seeing her development. She started off playing soccer and wore the number 2 jersey in honor of the professional soccer player and Olympic gold medalist Sydney Leroux, who is a close friend of the family. Gigi kept the number 2 as she transitioned to basketball, and Kobe would eventually create the Mamba girls basketball team around her. It was seeing the passion in Gigi that gave him the motivation to provide the best resources for her and other young aspiring athletes. And in 2018, Kobe would partner with Chris Faulkner, CEO of Sports Academy, to turn their location into the Mamba Sports Academy, which became a 100,000 square foot facility that operated 5 basketball courts, 7 volleyball courts, a turf field, an esports training ground, batting cages, pitching mounds, and a jiu-jitsu school. He said, Mamba Sports Academy is a natural expansion of my commitment to educating and empowering the next generation of kids through sports. The Mamba girls basketball team would be coached there, and Gigi played at the U10 through U15 levels, earning her the nickname Mambacita from her father. She was a beast on that court, y'all, and was fast on track to carrying the Bryant torch. She would attend Harbor Day Private School in Corona del Mar and was a member of the student council. Several of her classmates stated that she had a will to make things better and took a keen interest in helping elevate the student population through the many assignments she was given. She had plans to attend the University of Connecticut in 2024, which has the U.S.'s most successful women's basketball program, as her ultimate dream was to play in the WNBA.
Asia Wilson and Jackie Young. I try to watch as much film as I can so I can get more information and more inspiration from them.
And finally, for you, what would it be like to one day be a WNBA player?
I think it mean everything. I mean everything.
Awesome.
And fans will come up to me and she'll be standing next to me and they'll be like, hey, you gotta have a boy, UNV gotta have a boy, man. You have somebody carry on the tradition, the legacy. She's like, oh, I got this. You know, boy for that, I got this. Like, that's right. Yes, you do. You got this.
After her death, her school retired her jersey in her honor. At the 2020 NBA All-Star Game, Team LeBron wore both Gigi and her father's jersey numbers, and Sydney LaRue would get a tattoo in tribute of Gigi. She said the number 2 will always be ours. In 2021, the WNBA would posthumously award Gigi and Kobe as her coach with the WNBA Advocacy Award. I cannot fathom the depths of the pain Vanessa Bryant felt losing her husband and daughter, and like one comment said, when you bury a parent, you bury the past, but when you bury a child, you bury the future. Gigi inspired so many young, up-and-coming athletes during her short time on this earth, and even though she's not here in the physical, her impact lives on in our hearts for now and forever. Rest in peace, Gianna Bryant.
The WNBA selects Gianna Gigi Bryant, guard from Newport Beach, California.
Thank you so much for honoring my Gigi and selecting her to be an honorary draft pick this year. It would have been a dream come true for her. She worked tirelessly every single day. She wanted to be one of the greatest athletes of all time, just like her daddy. So thank you for honoring my little girl.
Born just a few months after Gigi, on July 13th in Orange County, Peyton Catherine Chester was the youngest victim on the ill-fated flight, but standing 5'11" at just 13 years old, she was mighty, and hailing from a sporty family, her athleticism was inherent. She was described as not only an exceptional basketball player, but also the kindest, most gentlest person you would ever meet. Growing up in San Juan Capistrano with her older twin brothers, she developed a toughness in sports very early on, running the 50-meter dash at just 6 years old. In addition to sports, she enjoyed spending time with her younger cousins and went out of her way to make sure every child felt included. Known as Pepe by close friends and family, she would attend Harborview Elementary from preschool through 5th grade. Her former principal of 5 years, Todd Schmidt, said if I ever had a new student, I could just go to Peyton and several of her friends, and they would just make sure that that person from almost the moment she met them would feel at ease, at home, and just part of the Harborview family. And she did it with this big smile. She had a light that made so many people want to be around her. Every teacher who had her knew that they had an amazing child who was going to work hard, but was also going to be a model student to others. She had the ability to bring out the best in every child, and with the biggest smile all the time. You knew that it was genuine. Peyton would go on to attend St. Margaret's Episcopal School, where she led her middle school basketball team and would bring the same talent and drive to the Mamba Sports Academy, donning the number 14 on her jersey. Her uncle Andy said she was on the Mamba team for years. It was obviously a big part of her life. Kobe was always there for them. Her family got to know the Bryants very well over the years. As an 8th grader, Peyton had already made plans to play in high school and college. Like Gigi, she dreamed of playing for the WNBA. Those who knew her said she enjoyed every minute of being there for the Mamba team. She worked so hard at it. She was good, and had a big figure ahead, and her mother Sarah was supportive the whole way. Born Sarah Ellen George on June 1974 and raised in Whittier, California, she had also grown up with two brothers and got involved in sports as a child and was a member of the student council in middle school before attending La Serna High School, where she played on the soccer team, donning the number 4 on her jersey. Sarah and her brothers would all go on to attend and graduate from Whittier College, a liberal arts school, where she played volleyball for the Whittier Poets. There she would also meet her future husband, Chris, who was a captain on the men's basketball team. Whittier College was a family tradition, as her mother Kathy was an administrator overseeing the education department and the graduate school program for 30 years. The phrase, like mother, like daughter, would be prevalent across the generations, as Sarah would not only go on to have 2 boys and 1 girl like her mother, but would also be heavily involved in her kids' education. She taught kindergarten at Tustin Memorial Academy in Santa Ana, but as her children got older, she would leave to devote more time to their development, as her family was her entire world. When her kids were attending Harborview Elementary, she became a member of the PTA, the same way her mother did when she and her brothers were coming up. She was described as just a great parent who would volunteer in the classrooms and do whatever needed to be done. The principal, Todd, would enlist her expertise as a former teacher often. He said she was a sounding board he would come to with ideas and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" She was a lens as a teacher and a parent. She always gave good insight and great ideas. As her kids migrated over to St. Margaret's for their middle school years, Sarah would join the board of trustees, and at age 45, she would tote her kids to their games, usually by car. But on the weekend of January 25th, 2020, for the upcoming Mamba Cup tournament, they would accompany the other members by helicopter, sealing their fate with the other 7 members on board. The entire Chester family was beloved by their community. They were described as supportive and encouraging, having wonderful children who lit up everything. Everyone was drawn to them. So when Sarah and Peyton were killed, the entire community felt the shock and grief. A private memorial honoring the two was held Saturday at St. Margaret's Episcopal School and was attended by more than 2,000 people. La Serna High would dedicate their senior night soccer game to Sarah and Peyton a week after the crash, and the Whittier men's basketball team would do the same. In 2021, Sarah's childhood friend Mickey and 17 classmates from her days at Ocean View Elementary School decided to raise enough funds to donate a buddy bench to their school in honor of Sarah's memory, and a plaque that would be donated to her East Whittier Middle School.
The back plaque says, "In remembrance of Sarah George Chester, 1985 Ocean View grad, Sarah was full of kindness and joy. She was a beautiful example of the only way to have a friend is to be one. This friendship bench is given by those many lifelong friends Sarah made here at Ocean View." And we chose yellow because being Sarah's college roommate, sometimes we wouldn't want to wake up and our other college roommate reminded me that Sarah would always say to us, "Good morning, sunshine."
The idea of the buddy bench is that if any child is playing and sees another child sitting on the bench, you go up to them and say, "Do you want to play with me?" Mickey said that's how Sarah played as a child. It was perfect and fitting for her memory. She just showed kindness and love for everyone and had so many lifelong friends. Sarah had instilled the same mentality and character traits in Peyton, who was described the same way by those who came to know her. Rest in peace to both Peyton and Sarah Chester.
The WNBA selects Peyton Chester, forward, from San Juan Capistrano, California.
On behalf of my family, I'd like to thank the WNBA for honoring Peyton and her teammates. She exemplified the Mamba mentality and was a fierce competitor. Her skill and determination to play in the WNBA was something I have no doubt she would have achieved, but was only surpassed by her joy for life and the game. We will always have fond memories of her sinking a 3 or a big steal and turning back on defense with that beautiful smile. Thank you.
The Altobellis were the other family on board the aircraft, and were also beloved by their community. Father John had a plethora of accolades to his name, and was the oldest on board the helicopter that day. Just a side note, many reports say their names as Altobelli, but close friends and family say Altobelli in their interviews. That's the pronunciation I'll use. Therefore, do not come up in my comments trying to police me up, because y'all did that in the last video. Came in there talking about, "You saying it wrong. Why you pronounce his name like that?" Because it's my channel, and I said so. I never said I was perfect, though. But if all you will take away from the memoriam and investigation into the deaths of 9 people is the pronunciation of someone's last name, it's best you just take your behind on somewhere. Don't even bother with the rest of the video. Aight. Born John Edward Altobelli in Chicago on May 8, 1963, he was the 6th out of 7 children. His father Jim was a professional baseball player, and he would follow suit, becoming an outfielder on his Newport Harbor High School baseball team. He would graduate in 1981 and would go on to play baseball at Golden West College. In his sophomore year, he was chosen team captain and was named the team's Wrestler of the Year in 1983. He would eventually transfer to the University of Houston, where he again would become team captain and 2-year starter in the Cougar outfield. In his senior year, he led the Cougars to the NCAA Regional Finals, bringing them 1 game from advancing to the College World Series. He would graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree in Physical Education in 1987. Now, he had briefly played professional baseball with the Miami Marlins, but decided to switch routes and go into coaching. He would return to his high school as a junior varsity coach before becoming assistant coach in Houston and finally the head coach of Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa for 27 years. In all, he led the Pirates to state championships in 2009, 2014, 2015, and in 2019, the same year in which he was named National Coach of the Year by the American Baseball Coaches Association. Known as Alto to those around him, he had remained dedicated to his players and worked constantly to raise funds for their scholarships. He was said to be a perfectionist who demanded a lot of his kids, to build them up to be the best players they could be. He worked hard, but he was also one to get down in the trenches with his players. For home games, he would arrive to the field at 6 a.m. with a push lawnmower and got to work. Yes, sir. And you best believe he would leave not a single sunflower in sight. Oh, and the first pitch of the game was typically 8 hours later. Over his life, he had 2 knee surgeries, a skin cancer scare, and open heart surgery, but that never stopped his grind. Though his passion for the game was so intense, occasionally having a rift on the field between himself and the umpires, Alto also had a loving heart and was described as a collector of lost baseball souls, with many former players of other teams who couldn't get tryouts due to past injuries finding their home at OCC with him. And when one of their catchers, Jordan Watanabe, died under suspicious circumstances, it left a lasting effect on Alto, who kept his memory alive over the years, eventually giving up his own number 14 so he can wear Jordan's number 22 in his honor. Around 2017, Alto had become close friends with Kobe, as their daughters played basketball together on the Mamba Sports Academy team. He had invited Kobe to speak to his team at OCC on a few occasions and give some sound advice. Once the players stopped gawking and grinning, they hung on to every word that Kobe would say. And by early 2019, after losing 2 games in a row, Alto was feeling down on his luck and would once again reach out to Kobe for words of encouragement that he could share with the team. And what Kobe would text him had him feeling such conviction and motivation, he would print out the text and attach it to a bulletin with a pic of Kobe and post it inside the team's dugout for them to see anytime they played. And the text read, "It's not as though life could be taken from you at any moment. No, that would be crazy. That would be cruel, right?" How profound and prophetic. Alto's brother, Tony, described how much Alto had meant to the community by saying, "John was straight and narrow. He worked hard and he earned the respect of anybody who ever knew him, and he left a legacy that will go way beyond his time spent in Orange Coast. I don't know how you can not want to live a life like that." He would be honored by OCC at the baseball season's opener against Southwestern, which was just 2 days after his death. His team would wear his number 14, and his brother, who was a sports information director, would ask the crowd for a 14-second moment of silence for Alto. In 1990, he and his first wife, Barbara, would bear a son named John James, who would go on to follow the family tradition of playing baseball and becoming a scout for the Red Sox. After Alto's divorce and the gloom it brought him, he found himself at a bar where he would bump into Carrie Lee Sanders, born on July 23, 1973. Now, she was very private and kept an extremely small circle. Though not much is known to the public about her upbringing, her best friend of 30 years, Lori, said she had experienced adversity and extreme sadness throughout her childhood. But upon meeting Alto that night, the connection they had felt like home. They instantly hit it off and became inseparable, getting married just 2 weeks later, and Carrie engulfed herself in baseball and attended every single game, both home and away, She even had a special spot near the third baseline. Now, Carrie was described by her friend as strong, direct, real, unapologetically bold, hardworking, and brutally honest because she cared. She was determined to overcome her odds and create the family with Alto that she always wanted. She would embrace Alto's son JJ as if he were her own, and the couple would go on to have 2 daughters, Lexi and Alyssa, and their family were tight-knit, very seldom being seen without all members present at any event. Over the years, the kids' personal passions became Carrie's passions, managing the family schedule with baseball commitments for Alto, basketball for Alyssa, tennis and academics for Lexi, supporting JJ as he pursued a career in baseball, and the demands of Carrie's own business left little time of anything else. She was admired by many for her loyalty and strong set of values. She stood up for herself, her family, and her close inner circle, and did not fall prey to becoming the victim of her circumstances. Though life's obstacles never did let up, especially with the pain of losing her mother, she maintained a close relationship with her older brother Derek, who played an active part in the family and also attended his niece's games religiously. In her last year of life, Carrie would become the godmother to her friend Lori's son Xander. Close friends say there is nowhere Carrie would have rather been on the last day of her life than right there with her family.
Something and he'll make noises. We have a list of his noises, and he'll be like bop bop bop, and then they'll go and do it bop 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 exactly the way he says, or he'll go bop bop, and then they do it bop bop. It's just weird.
Throughout her marriage, anytime Alto's temper would flare up on the field, he knew to keep that energy right there on the field. Carrie was his calm and would censor him when necessary. He knew what time it was if ever she called him by his name, and she would tell him what he was doing wrong. He listened because to him, she spoke in gospel. And after his open heart surgery, Carrie reminded him to save his tempers for only the most necessary moments, as he needed to be here for his daughters, whom he bragged about all the time. The youngest daughter, Alyssa, born June 16, 2005 in Orange County, was nicknamed Lovebug by her late grandmother. She grew up in the Newport Beach area and attended Mariner Elementary School before advancing to Newport's Ensign Intermediate School. She inherited both of her parents' drive and supreme work ethic. She started playing basketball at a young age and was always practicing. When other teenage girls were hanging out, shopping, or doing other activities, she would often forego these pleasures in favor of practicing and giving 110% even when no one was watching. She was fully devoted to the game, showing up 30 minutes early, and whenever practice was canceled, she would find ways to use the nearest gym to still get her practicing time in. She definitely had that Mamba mentality, which is a quest to be better than you were yesterday, and she was diligent in doing so. So it was fitting when she joined the Mamba team as point guard, donning the number 5 on her jersey. And she was a force to be reckoned with on that court, y'all. Her father took such joy in seeing her development and excellence as a young athlete, the same way Kobe was with Gigi and Sarah was with Peyton. They all bonded over their daughter's passions for the sport of basketball, and Alyssa flew often with Kobe and Gigi to attend games at the Mamba Sports Academy. So when it was time for the tournament that fateful weekend, Alto, Carrie, and Alyssa would be down for the ride, as they always were. Alyssa also had a love for animals and had aspirations to become a veterinarian. It was said that in the 6th grade, she did not like how the turtles were being used in the science classroom, so she took them home, cared for them, and never brought them back, as they were hers now. She was steadfast in her plans to attend the University of Oregon, much like her brother, and tried to persuade Gigi to come with her so they could play together and absolutely dominate on the courts the way they did at the academy. And although Gigi was passionate about attending Connecticut, she may have eventually budged, and they could have did the damn thing. But we'll never know. After her death, hundreds would gather and pack in a baseball field for a candlelight vigil in her honor, and some of her friends wore t-shirts in the University of Oregon's colors with slogans that read, "Live like Lyssa." They took turns telling stories about her and even read a poem she once wrote while everyone listened. Afterwards, they lit candles in shape of the number 5, Alyssa's number. They also released 9 sky lanterns, one for each victim of the crash. Everyone held candles as it got dark, while some of Alyssa's favorite songs played on the loudspeakers. A celebration of life for John, Carrie, and Alyssa would be held at the Angel Stadium, and as you can imagine, it was a massive turnout, as friends and family would give their speeches on the impact each of the 3 members had on those around them. It was a beautiful ceremony, and the remaining 2 children, along with JJ's fiance, would cling to each other and the tremendous outpouring of love and support from their community. JJ would obtain legal guardianship of his sister Lexi, who was attending the same high school her dad went to at the time of the crash. And according to her uncle Tony, they were coping as good as could be expected, but he said the COVID crisis, which was just popping off at the time, made it harder for the entire family to grieve because they couldn't see, hug, or embrace one another. However, there was a surprise in store for Lexi, as in one of Kobe's final texts from the helicopter on that fateful morning was to his boy Rob, who was the Lakers general manager. He asked Rob if he knew a certain sports agent named Scott Boras. Apparently, Kobe wanted to vouch for Lexi's character and intellect, and Rob said, "Yeah, I just seen Scott at the game not too long ago. I'll put a plan in motion." The crash happened just minutes later, but Rob and Scott would honor Kobe's last act of kindness with granting Lexi an internship. Scott said, "We're going to create a community for her. We're going to take her to games and show her how our company with 135 employees and all of its departments works." That's what's up, man. That's what's up. And as for the Altobellis, they died doing what they loved. Alyssa headed to her basketball game, Alto enamored with seeing his baby girl's passion for the sport, and Carrie, being the loving support system for her family, was right where she wanted to be. Rest in peace to all three. May their impact be forever lasting.
The WNBA selects Alyssa Altobelli, guard, from Newport Beach, California.
We just wanted to say thank you to the WNBA for honoring our sister Alyssa and her two teammates, Gigi and Peyton. Alyssa loved the game of basketball and she worked extremely hard at her craft. There's no doubt in our mind that she would have made it to the WNBA after her years at Oregon. Thank you again for honoring our sister. It truly means a lot to us.
Now, behind every good coach is their assistant coach, and Christina Mauser lived that title with every sense of the word. Born Christina Michelle Patterson on June 26, 1981, and growing up in Huntington Beach, she was the only girl out of 7 grandkids, so she also developed a toughness and brilliance early on, and she was skiing at the age of 2. Oh yeah, she wasn't never scared. Overachieving was her forte, and by high school, she was a beast at soccer and volleyball, but was the star basketball player who won her high school's Hall of Fame award 2 years in a row, was a 4-year varsity letter winner, won Edison High's Athlete of the Year in 1999, and was an All-League award winner. They wasn't ready for her. Nah, they wasn't ready, but she was killing it. She was described as being driven, intense, having a killer instinct on the court, never giving less than 100%, and demanding the same from her teammates as she led them to a Sunset League championship her senior year of high school. She would go on to graduate from California State University, Fullerton, with a degree in childhood development, as much like the other adults mentioned in this video, for her, it was all about giving back. She would teach physical education at Harbor Day Private School for 11 years and was the girls' assistant basketball coach up at the school. Her husband, singer Matthew Mauser, who she married in 2005, taught Spanish at the school, but was also the main basketball coach there. So when Gigi joined the girls' basketball team up at Harbor Day, Kobe would gravitate towards them both. And by the time he was starting the Mamba girls basketball team, he initially enlisted Matt to be his assistant coach. But according to Matt, Kobe wasn't really impressed with his performance. He wanted the best of the best of the best. And after noticing what an amazing mind Christina had for the game, he picked her instead to mentor the girls. And she was so extraordinary and exceptional. Now earlier, I had mentioned that Kobe was told to leave music alone and focus on the sport. Well, Kobe in turn told Matt to just focus on the music. And Matt would end up doing jingles for Kobe's podcast, The Punies.
And The Punies is a fun show about children just having a good time playing sports. You see them bantering with each other. You see them dealing with the success and the failures that come with playing sports. You see their own relationships with each other develop and grow. And ultimately, it's just a fun, imaginative show. Like they create their own products on the show and they sell their own products, right? So they'll do commercial breaks. Then themselves will do commercial breaks as if it's their show.
But back on the court, Christina would take charge of teaching the girls zone defense. They called her MOD, which stood for Mother of Defense. There, she put all of her traits of being fierce, talented, and competitive, yet steady and supportive into training the girls, and had truly came into her passion. her husband would explain how profusely proud he was of her. He said he got to know all of the future victims of the crash, saying it really was a family. They really cared for each other. And off the court, him and Christina had 3 children together. And not only was she supermom to her kids, being a strong force for the family, but she was also instrumental in the growth of her husband's musical success with his band, the Tijuana Dogs. And her being Kobe's right hand for the Mamba sports team, she would accompany the group on flights to and from the games. So the weekend of the Mamba Cup was no different. That Sunday, she awoke the kids, kissed everyone goodbye, including her husband, who was half asleep.
She kissed me and she said, "I love you." And I didn't realize I was still sleeping, and she walked out the door, and I kind of came to and I heard the door close, but I didn't wake up. I wish I would have. I was kind of in a fog.
After boarding the helicopter, her last text was to their nanny, asking that she give special attention to her youngest child, Ivy, who had a fever that morning, and said she'd be back soon. A few hours would pass by, and by now, Matt was up and wondering why he hadn't gotten the "we've arrived" text from his wife, but hadn't grown too concerned and figured she just got busy. But then one of his bandmates called saying he had just gotten the word that Kobe's helicopter went down, and instantly Matt knew.
How do you feel? You feel angry?
That's a good question. I'm scared. I think more than anything, I'm a little scared about the future. I guess I'm doing as good as we can expect. It's just horrible. It's horrible. So, I got 3 small kids and trying to figure out how to navigate life with 3 kids and no mom.
The funeral service for Christina Mauser was held at her alma mater, Edison High, on February 16th. And her husband would appear on America's Got Talent the following year, and their kids would be in attendance. His audition was a beautiful, tear-jerking farewell to Christina. He would receive a standing ovation, and the judges were speechless while he received 4 yeses. His performance is on YouTube if you've got tissues nearby. He went on to found the Christina Mauser Foundation to support women and girls in sports through scholarships and other financial aid to pass down her legacy of helping build, shape, and mold young athletes in any way she could. And I know she would be proud. Rest in peace to Christina Mauser. And lastly, we have the beloved pilot, Ara Zobayan, born January 2nd, 1970 in Lebanon, who had just celebrated 50 years of life and was highly regarded as a pilot by many celebrities in the Los Angeles area. After moving to the States and going over a sightseeing tour flight at the Grand Canyon, Ara knew immediately he wanted to become a pilot, and around 1998, he would receive his flight training at Group 3 Aviation in Van Nuys, California, and eventually received his first private pilot license with a helicopter rating on January 21st, 2001, flying for many years before receiving his commercial pilot license on December 3rd, 2007. But much like every adult I've covered in this video, Ara wanted to give back as much as he received and would become an instructor pilot. One of his student pilots would later say Ara felt he was here on Earth to fly and enjoy this feeling that he had, and would teach people who wanted to fly how to have this same feeling. He was a man that always remained cool, calm, and collected, and was not the type to push limits, as he knows the rules and regulations and lives by them. Eventually, Ara would join Island Express Helicopters, a charter company that offers helicopter tours, rides, and charter yachts to those interested in exploring various aspects of LA County, Orange County, and the surrounding coast. They are noted for getting passengers around the area quickly, safely, and with class. And in 2013, Ara would be featured in an episode of Celebrity Wife Swap, which featured Andy Dick and Lorenzo Lamas. After his appearance, Ara started getting more requests from different people to fly them around. Fellow pilot Jared Y told CNN, "There's a reason that people wanted to fly with him. He was just a cool, calm guy." But even though Ara was well liked and highly revered, above making mistakes he was not. None of us are. But as a pilot, your mistakes can be costly. Now, all of the aircrafts associated with Island Express only operated under VFR, which stands for Visual Flight Rules, meaning they could fly as long as the pilot can look out the window and have 3 miles worth of visibility, and 1,000-foot ceilings for the clouds in that type of airspace. Occasionally, a pilot can request special VFR, meaning if he starts off flying and the weather conditions change, or he's flying across an airport or busy area, he can request a special set of eyes helping guide or navigate him through. Now, the Island Express could have flown IFR, which is flying based off of instruments, but they would need additional technology in the aircrafts as well as having all 6 of their pilots certified on using said equipment, which may have been too costly for the company's liking. But they could have done it though. But anyway, Ara himself only had a few hundred hours worth of experience flying IFR in the past, and was far more experienced flying VFR where he could see. So on May 11th, 2015, he would be reprimanded after flying into an airspace without permission while he had reduced visibility. According to the FAA report, his helicopter was near the Hawthorne, California airport and heading north when he asked the LAX tower for permission to cross LAX airspace, which stays busy. The air traffic controller told Ara, hey, weather conditions don't meet the minimum if you're using VFR. So they asked him, can you maintain VFR conditions? And he replied, I can maintain special VFR conditions. But the air traffic controller said, nah, we good, and they denied his request and told him to stay clear of the area. But then he replied, I can maintain VFR. And his helicopter entered the airspace, which was a big no-no. But Ara contacted the authorities and his company after the incident and was cooperative. An FAA investigator faulted him for failing to properly plan and review current weather at LAX, which would have allowed him time to communicate earlier with the tower in order to receive clearance, according to the record. The record said that he had admitted his error, took responsibility for his action, and was willing to take any other necessary steps towards compliance. And aside from this isolated incident, in his 20 plus years of flying, he had no other violations on his record. And Gary Johnson of ACE Clearwater said that Ara was a pilot's pilot, one of the few people I would trust with my life, my family's life, and even my dog's life. And apparently Kobe felt the same way. As I mentioned before, Ara was Kobe's favorite pilot, and over the years, he would fly Kobe and some of his teammates everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's flowing him a lot. Great guy, super nice. You know, he was one of the best pilots. You know, that's a guy who you ask for. You know, to fly you from city to city. He'll drop me off and say he's about to go pick up Kobe. Kobe said hello, or he'll, you know, just be like, I just dropped Kobe off and he said hello, you know, vice versa. So it's just a crazy interaction. He's a good dude.
By early 2020, Ara was now chief pilot and had more than 8,577 hours of flight time, and 1,250 of those hours were on the Sikorsky S-76B helicopter, which seats 2 pilots and 8 passengers, and was Kobe's favorite aircraft. At one point, it was painted black with his Mamba logo for a special occasion. And on Saturday, January 25th, 2020, everyone would load into the helicopter at John Wayne Airport, headed for the tournament at the Mamba Sports Academy in Newbury Park. Now, one thing that Ara did do that Aaliyah's pilot Luis Morales did not do was weigh the passengers. As you can see on this flight plan, you got the names of the passengers and their respective weights, where they're going to be seated to make sure the aircraft is balanced. This right here is what your form should look like. However, the people on Aaliyah's plane didn't have that. Though the weather wasn't the fairest that day, the flight would take off and they arrived at Camarillo Airport and made it to the Sports Academy without incident. They played their game, and at 3 p.m., they would depart from Camarillo and return to John Wayne. But because this was a tournament, which tournaments go the whole weekend, Ara told everyone to have a great evening and I'll see y'all tomorrow so we can do it again. Right? And at around 5 p.m., a group chat involving Ara, Kobe's limo driver, and the OC Helicopters reps would discuss the flight plan for the following day. They discussed the possibility of the weather acting up again, but that they would monitor. And the next day, Ara texted the group saying it should be okay to fly. Now that morning, Kobe and his family attended 7 a.m. Sunday Mass at Our Lady Queen of Angels Catholic Church in Newport Beach. And afterwards, he chatted with LeBron briefly before requesting that the 9:45 a.m. flight be bumped up to 9 a.m. Even though the weather was decent at their current location, having visibility of 5 miles, Ara's weather radio showed patchy haze and dense fog over the Santa Monica Mountain region in which they were headed. He discussed this issue with Rick Webb, owner of OC Helicopters, and they determined that he would fly a route that was further inland instead. Now, before every flight, there is an electronic risk assessment form that must be completed. Some reports said that Ara had only checked some of the boxes to make it appear as though the risk for flying was low, and other reports said that he just skipped this step entirely and pressed submit. Either way, at 9:06, their helicopter departed from John Wayne Airport with everyone on board, bound for Camarillo Airport. The flight was supposed to take no more than 30 minutes, as opposed to a 2-hour drive, but due to light rain, low cloud layers, and dense fog, most VFR aircrafts were grounded that morning. And as Ara passed Dodger Stadium, headed towards the area just above the LA Zoo, the area wasn't favorable for VFR. He would contact Burbank Airport's control tower and requested the use of special VFR, and they had him circling the airspace for a while to allow other aircrafts to land, before he was granted permission to proceed to Van Nuys. At this point, the visibility was between 1.5 miles and 2 miles. Now, he could have landed at Van Nuys, or in any parking lot or open field, as helicopters are allowed to do so, and the FAA's helicopter safety team encourages that pilots land and live. Ara likely had planned continuation bias, and was determined to make it work. At around 9:42 a.m., he was in communication with SCT, whose controller told Ara that his altitude at that time was too low for flight following, and that they were probably going to lose contact with him as he reached more hilly terrain. They told him to just stay low until he got to the Camarillo Towers, and Ara said copy that. However, Ara was now entering IFR conditions, meaning conditions that he needed instruments to navigate through, and couldn't see shit but a cloud layer, and would call back into SCT, stating his intention to climb higher to avoid the cloud. But by this time, there had been a shift change, and a new air traffic controller had stepped in and relieved the one that Ara was previously talking to. And this new guy basically asked Ara, "Who are you? Where are you? What are your intentions? Reach over and hit that identification button on your transponder so we can verify and track you." At this point, Ara had become spatially disoriented. He stated his intentions to climb to 4,000 feet, and thought he was doing so, but in reality, a left turn he had made just earlier had the helicopter tilted facing the ground. But it's likely he didn't know this because he couldn't see anything. He would then lose contact with the towers, as he excelled thinking he was going to break through the top of the clouds, but he was actually plummeting towards the ground at 180 miles per hour. He could have hit autopilot at any moment, but in his confusion, he neglected to. Before anyone knew it, it was over. The aircraft would plunge into the hillside at 9:45, killing everyone on board instantly. The helicopter would begin burning and started a quarter-acre bushfire. At around 9:47 a.m., authorities were called. LA County Fire Department firefighters responded to the scene, and paramedics arrived from a helicopter to look for survivors, but there were none. The wreckage and debris was spread out over several hundred feet, and the autopsy reports online, y'all, reveal a grim discovery. The way these bodies were discovered was just gut-wrenching to read. Several of the victims could only be identified by dental records, and Kobe himself could only be identified by certain tattoos on his body. Now, their type of helicopter initially came with black boxes, but Island Express had them removed in 2016. So we'll never know for sure how those final moments were for the group after losing contact with the air traffic controller. But the only comfort one can take is in knowing that the force from the impact, coupled with the likelihood of the pilot thinking he was ascending, meant that it was likely that no one knew what was happening and no one suffered beyond the split-second impact. Eventually, the officials would have to use a helicopter to airlift the wreckage from the area. Billions of tributes would pour in as the world struggled to grasp just what had happened. And even tributes from those who knew the pilot, such as Kylie Jenner, who said on social media, "That was the helicopter I would fly on from time to time." And with that pilot, Ara, "He was such a nice man. Hold your loved ones close." And Lorenzo Lamas also wrote, "I will always remember the laughs we shared and the skies we flew together. You were my mentor, my instructor, but most importantly, a truly great human. You will be missed so much and never forgotten, and I will long for the day we are reunited in heaven." Ara's longtime girlfriend, Tess Davidson, said that Ara was every bit of an adopted father to her 2 sons. But for the public, sadness would turn to rage. In the same way the media lied and said that Aaliyah was a diva who demanded that luggage that she did not have be flown on her aircraft, would be the same way that many sources would claim that Kobe was a tyrant who didn't take no for an answer, and that despite foggy conditions told Ara, "You gon' fly this helicopter because I'm Kobe, and my baby girl needs to win this tournament. So do as I say and let's fly away." But it would be later reported that Island Express had canceled flights for celebrities all the time, and even Kobe himself was canceled on due to intense weather conditions in the past, as they treated everyone equal and no one was exempt from the company following safety protocols. Others who were big fans of Kobe were upset that he took helicopters as his main source of transportation in the first place, as many felt that the odds were gonna catch up at some point. But ultimately, in both Aaliyah and Kobe's situations, the pilots were responsible for the safety of travel, period. But aside from the riffraff from online spectators, the families of the victims would deal with a much deeper pain, as issues of their loved ones' remains were shared amongst certain members of law enforcement and firefighters who were on the scene and thought it was funny. But Vanessa Bryant wasn't having none of it. She would file lawsuits against the sheriff's office and LA County for emotional distress, but not before filing lawsuits against Island Express and the estate of Ara Zobayan as well, claiming the companies did not properly train or supervise Zobayan and that he was careless and negligent to fly in fog and should have aborted the flight. And when she later found out that Rick Webb had checked and monitored the weather and still gave the go-ahead, she would throw OC helicopters right up in there with them. The Altobellis, Mausers, and Chesters would also follow suit against Island Express and LA County, but not against Ara's estate. However, Ara's brother would clap back in court documents saying Kobe and them knew the risks and faulted the negligence of the passengers as the sole reason for their demise. Likewise, Island Express would clap back at everyone, saying that the accident happened because of unforeseeable events beyond its control, and argued that they are not responsible for damages that were due to an act of God. But the court said hell no to the no, no, no. And in total, Vanessa walked away with 28 mil. Chris Chester walked away with 19 mil. Now the Altobellis and Mausers did not want to go to trial and had opted to settle for a combination of 2.5 mil, though their settlements with Island Express was undisclosed. Though nothing will ever ease the pain of losing their loved ones in an avoidable accident, man. That happened for what, man? Why did they have to die? You look and you see all these families ripped apart. Their pictures are incomplete. But may their loved ones rest in peace. Now, my last video got me in trouble, and I'm not trying to lose this account, so all I'm gonna do is point out a few similarities, and y'all tell me what y'all think. Can I do that? YouTube, is it okay for me to do that? Okay then. Now, Kobe and Aaliyah were born months apart from one another. Kobe was born in August, died in January. Aaliyah was born in January and died in August. Both died over the weekend, with Aaliyah in the evening hours of Saturday the 25th and Kobe on the morning hours of Sunday the 26th. Both were traveling with 8 passengers for work. Both took the brunt of the blame by society for their own demise, and both of their plane crashes ushered in tragic world-altering events. Aaliyah with 9/11 halting all airspace travel over the Americas, and Kobe with COVID halting all airspace travel worldwide. Man, but being fresh out of YouTube jail, I won't say nothing else about it. It's just something to think about. But hey, I do want to shout out the Dr. Medic and AV Webb. I couldn't have done parts of this documentary without their thorough investigative insight. Y'all head over to their channels and make sure to give them some love and support. But ending on a positive note, in January 2022, a bronze statue of Kobe and Gigi would be placed at the site of the crash, and fans would come and pay their respects. And I do hope that in the future they add plaques or monuments of the other victims as well. But for now, this is Justified by Jury. Y'all know how to hit that like, y'all know how to hit that subscribe. I want to thank y'all and appreciate y'all for holding this channel down while I was away. We got some more content coming very soon, so stay tuned. And I will catch y'all in the next one.